Welcome back to the Dr. Vincent Buscemi podcast. I'm your host, general dentist, not a specialist, not a medical doctor, not a scientist, not a mentally stable person, general dentist, Dr. Vincent Buscemi. I am obsessed with how one can change their environment to improve their lives. How can you change your environment to improve your health? How can you change your environment to improve your social interactions with other people? I'm obsessed with personal responsibility, personal freedom. I heard a quote the other day from the Danny Jones podcast from one of his guests saying that you can't change the system you're in, but you can beat the system through personal responsibility to create personal freedom. And I think health is a huge part of personal freedom and oral health, because that's where I specialize in. As a general dentist, I'm very concerned about your teeth, your gums, your facial structure, how you sleep, how you eat, how you feel. And it is proven in science that 99.9% of the dental disease, maybe even the sleep apnea you experience, is from environment, not genetic. That should be both empowering and kind of saddening because it's your fault, but we can fix it. There is this huge discussion on expansion in some social media, TikTok. Do we need expansion? Are we expanding kids too much? I feel like a lot of patients are coming back into my office declining expansion for their children without even me bringing it up because they are so overwhelmed by all this marketing online for quote unquote airway dentist, quote unquote airway orthodontist. It's overwhelming. And a lot of them express the sentiment that the reason why they feel so overwhelmed is because in the past year, everybody seems to be an airway dentist. Everybody seems to be talking about how you can expand your child's palate. From the dentist standpoint, we're realizing this because jaws are smaller, but I don't think the proper education has been given to the general public as to why, and it's not genetic. Look at this article on the screen. Dr. Corricini, my Italian cousin, he's not my cousin, but he's probably Italian, talked about if you study epigenetics, if you study genetics, if you study evolution, he's an archaeologist, if you study archaeology, we have not been alive long enough from when we transitioned to wide open jaws to narrow constricted jaws to develop that genetically. It is purely from our environment. And Corricini's point of view is he is pretty certain a large, if not entire, contributing factor is chewing. He talks about in this article, and I won't bore you with this whole article, that we have lost the art of chewing. We don't chew hard foods anymore. And that has more negative side effects, even outside of small jaws, even outside of increased chance of sleep apnea, even outside of unattractive faces. And I have done some research on the lost art of chewing, and I'm very fascinated with how we can bring that back into our lives and not only maybe reduce the need for palate expansion in kids, maybe reduce the need for facial surgery, but there's also other factors that chewing, how it improves our lives, and I want to get into it. Okay, the lost art of chewing. I will be fully upfront. I use GenSpark artificial intelligence to make this PowerPoint, but it's really good. But I did read it over. So your jaw is shrinking, and it's not just genetics. It's because we stopped chewing. We used to chew all day. People 100 years ago, maybe 200 years ago, from the archaeology of the skulls, didn't need orthodontics. Had wide open jaws, wide open airways, probably less sleep apnea. They didn't test it back then, but probably less sleep apnea, probably less TMJ. Because a lot of my TMJ patients have small constricted arches. And then when I expand their arches through clear aligner expansion, in some of my cases, they get reduction in TMJ symptoms. So although For some reason, some orthodontists don't believe that orthodontics has any link to TMD. I see it every day. So we're just going to currently have to agree to disagree. But the biggest point I want to bring up here is that chewing is not just dental. It is full body health, which I'll further explain in this article. And it's a biological signal that we lost. A good parallel here is that, and I'm currently at 6 a.m. sitting in a bunch of artificial light, but I'm trying to block it with my glasses here, is that we have introduced artificial light into our lives, which has really significantly reduced our health. It reduced our melatonin production, which is a whole host of sleep issues. This is the same thing. Instead of adding in an artificial signal, we removed a natural signal, which is chewing. And I'm going to go over what we've lost because we lost the art of chewing. How we engineer this out. It's processed, addicting, malicious. I don't want to get all conspiracy on this. Foods. Our foods today are designed to get us addicted, are designed to get us sick, are designed to make us unhealthy. I really think they're scientists in the laboratory. Maybe they're not thinking, let's give these people diseases from the food, but these people are thinking, let's make this food addictive. And it is. When I start eating artificial food, when I start eating things in a package, it goes off the rails. I've currently gained 20 to 30 pounds in the past, maybe 6 months due to stress eating. But every time I'm stressed, my brain goes, grab that artificial food, grab that packaged snack. My wife's always asking, why are all the kids' packaged snack for school gone? Not because my kids are eating it, because I'm eating it in darkness to reduce my stress. So what do we got? Because we don't chew like we used to, we have more crooked teeth. We got to get our kids as young as possible eating as unprocessed food as possible. We have airway issues because our jaws are smaller. Why is it that I would say the only dental cure to sleep apnea is double jaw surgery, which nobody wants to get, is where they break your jaw on both sides and move both your maxilla and mandible forward and then put titanium back in there. So your jaw is literally more forward. It does make a more aesthetic appearance, but it is a major surgery. But if, as kids, if our parents gave us more unprocessed food, more natural food, I think they reduce the chances of us needing it. And also, I had a patient the other day during our virtual consult ask about little chewing devices. One of the brands is Myo Munchie for kids. I think it's a good thing. I think the more that our kids are chewing, the better. Adults too. I don't think that protein shake is good for you from a processed food standpoint, but also you don't chew when you eat the food. And I think if you're not chewing while you're eating food or consuming calories, which this article will further go into, it's a problem. So I think more chewing will reduce the chance of crooked teeth, will help develop our small jaws. It will help reduce our sleep issues because of the structure. But also there's a large connection between brain function and chewing. And what is important to me right now, because I have gained weight recently, is there is a huge connection between chewing and the amount of calories you eat per meal. We're going to go into that too. Right here. So, reduced masticatory function may result in underdevelopment of craniofacial skeleton. This is proven. This is not folklore. This is not influencer bro wellness medicine. This is scientific anthropologic evidence that our old diets used to be tough and fibrous, which did lead to wider jaws and straight teeth. And we can prove this because the skulls that Dr. Corcini and now Dr. Starvos have looked at had much wider jaws, no crooked teeth, and less cavities because their diets were different. And what's crazy about this is that within just a couple hundred years, I have not seen maybe one kid in my practice who has gaps in their baby teeth. If your child does not have gaps in their baby teeth, they're probably going to need orthodontics. If your child has a cross bite in their baby teeth, there's a 100% chance that crossbite will develop in adulthood, which leads to a whole host of issues. So we don't want that. Crossbites are a big deal. And that was very rare. What's cool about this is you can dig up old skulls and see their wide jaws, their straight teeth. You can't go back and pull up old skulls and old skeletons and test for diabetes, test for heart disease. So this is a more, I don't want to say objective, but this is a lot more objective than saying hunter-gatherers did not have cardiovascular disease, because we really don't know, or diabetes, because we weren't testing them. But if we don't develop our jaws fully and have what's called mandible freedom, where your mandible can move around without being trapped by your top jaw, we're going to develop problems. I'm taking a training seminar through the Postural Restoration Institute. My mind is blown. If your mandible is not free, you're going to be sick. Your posture will be off. We're always fighting gravity. Gravity is always pulling us down. And if your mandible is a huge part in your overall posture and how you can fight this gravity and fight systemic disease. Think of it this way. Your top jaw is the criminal. The more constricted your top jaw is, your maxilla, it traps your bottom jaw. And your bottom jaw is the victim. So modern diets, soft processed food, probably disease causing with all the crappy chemicals, are a huge part of it. Okay, chewing, here we go. We kind of already went over this. It also helps increase breathing quality, because the wider your jaws, the more open your airway, the more you're breathing through your nose. And nasal breathing is huge. If you can get your kids to breathe through their nose, they will have increased quality of life. Another thing about chewing, which is crazy, is that mastication, which is chewing, increases cerebral blood flow and is associated with improved cognitive performance. There's a reason why you see people chewing gum at work. I'll chew gum at nighttime if I have to work because I don't want to drink a bunch of caffeine and interrupt my sleep. So from this article, it shows that every time you chew, you're activating your brain. The trigeminal nerve, which is a huge nerve, which controls chewing, has massive representation in the brain. Removing chewing removes a natural form of brain stimulation. So chewing is important. I've actually just ordered mastic gum that's going to arrive in my house today. And I'm going to start chewing gum as much as I can. And I'm going to test and see how my calorie intake is, see how my mental capacity is. And I want to see if actually bringing back chewing into my life actually does improve my life. Also, chewing is huge when it comes to digestion. The more you chew, the less bloating you'll have, the better digestion you'll have, and the more you'll be able to absorb the nutrients in the food. Here's from a review of a 2023 review in Nutrition Science. Chewing plays a critical role in digestion through mechanical breakdown and salivary secretion. So when you're chewing, digestion starts in your mouth. And then this is just a plug for going to your dentist and taking care of your teeth in general. If you have shitty teeth, you're going to have a hard time chewing. So please take care of your teeth, not just for aesthetics, but because you're going to lose the ability to chew. This is what I need right now. Satiety and weight. Chew more, eat less. They did this study in the American Journal of Clinical Nutrition. And they did 3 groups. Groups that ate food very fast, which is the story of my life. Groups that did normal chewing, which I've never done in my life. And I think you're a psychopath if you can just sit down and chew your food slowly. And then one more, groups that chewed real slow. So there was a 42% reduction in energy intake when people had thorough chewing. So if you eat at a slower pace, it reduces overeating. It enhances satiety, which is a fancy word for reduces the hunger signals in your body, and better portion control. My whole life is a fight against portion control because this food is addictive. But the more you chew, the more portion control you can obtain. So right here, here's the key insight from the article. The more you chew, the less you tend to overeat. Soft, fast foods lead to delayed fullness signals, causing you to eat more before your body realizes it's full. My grandpa that lived to 95 would always say he would eat to about 70% full and just stop. And him and my grandma, actually, who my grandma's still alive at 97, would go out for a walk after they ate every day. I think that's why they lived so long. But I really think that mastic gum that I'm going to order, and I'll do a TikTok on it, will help with this portion control. Chewing in kids. There's something called baby-led weaning, which I'll be fully upfront. We kind of did with our kids, but we did give our kids a lot of purees. Baby-led weaning is where basically you give the kids the food you're eating. I'm not a master of baby-led weaning, so maybe you should go look into that more thoroughly yourself, or I'll do an article on that. But the more your kids eat unprocessed, raw, natural foods, whole foods, the better their faces will develop and the less need for orthodontics. It just blows my mind. If we never needed orthodontics as hunter-gatherers, well, we didn't have it, but the skulls show that we didn't have crowding. And look how much palatal expansion we need now in kids. Probably every kid that comes to my office, and I'm not an orthodontist, either I send to an orthodontist for palatal expansion or I do it myself in my practice. All my kids need palatal expansion. And also, there's increase in what's called oral soft tissue dysfunction, and there's been a rise in need of myofunctional therapy. I think all of that can be eliminated if we brought chewing as a practice back into our lives. Here's something exciting. Chewing, stress regulation. Chewing gum reduces perceived stress and cortisol levels. Rhythmic, calming, regulatory behavior that activates the nervous system. That's chewing. If you chew gum, it can reduce your perceived stress. And this article shows that when participants chewed on gum, they had a 25% reduction in perceived stress, a 20% increase in the brain activation, a 15% decrease in cortisol levels, and an 18% increase in sleep quality just from chewing gum. So I'm really excited to try that new mastic gum. So here's the conclusion that I want to bring to you guys. Chewing think of it as a biological input. Think of chewing as a signal to the rest of your body that you are operating optimally. Chewing increases development of the face and jaw in children. Does it in adults? I don't know, because I don't think you can grow the jaw purely based off chewing in adults, but I'm sure it helps. It increases sleep and airway because it increases the overall development of your face. It definitely increases brain function. It definitely increases reduced stress responses. It helps with digestion. This is a huge one. It helps with weight gain and appetite control, and really helps with oral motor coordination in children. So the biggest takeaway is chewing is not something frivolous that we can throw away and just start drinking smoothies. Chewing is an actual biological input into our system that we have lost. And the more that you can introduce chewing into your life, I think your overall health will increase. I really appreciate you guys listening to this podcast. I'm going to follow up on TikTok and Instagram with my journey on how I'm going to introduce chewing back to my life. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys soon.